All right, I've been hearing a lot of kickback from the Republican side about Kamala Harris saying that she's not going to tax tips on service workers, food service workers and stuff like this. And there's something to keep in mind here. About 6 months ago, the Supreme Court made a decision that, and it was basically to combat the whole accusations of them getting paid to rule favorably in like Harlan Crow type situations, Clarence Thomas. It was a rule that they put into place, a decision they put in place, basically saying that it is okay to give government workers, things like that, tips, gratuities, after the fact. That's supposed to combat, say, Clarence Thomas getting an $800,000 RV when Harlan Crow's companies are having some sort of, suit or something in front of the Supreme Court for favorable hearings, which has happened. And it has happened with other justices too. So what they did was they put a rule in place that basically said tips are okay. So you're not allowed to get paid to return a favorable ruling, but you could get paid as a thank you for a favorable ruling. That's supposed to lessen the amount of corruption in the Supreme Court, but that also applied to Congress and Senate, stuff like that. So that was a rule put in place by our Supreme Court 6 months ago. Now, mind you, the word tips in that respect, in that perspective, is what Donald Trump's talking about, not taxing those tips. For those people who already make millions of dollars a year, who already have better tax breaks and pay less taxes than the 99% of us. Those are the tips Donald Trump's talking about. Yeah, it includes waitresses and all that other stuff, but it is possible for an executive that gets a $1 million a year salary that he already gets really good tax breaks from because he's making $1 million a year, but he also gets a $2 million bonus, which is considered a tip. So he wouldn't pay tax on that $2 million bonus, and he'd pay very little tax on that $1 million a year salary. That is who Donald Trump is constructing all of his regulations for, all of his proposals for. And if you follow what he promises people in the oil industry for $1 billion, you can write your own regulations for, $1 billion from CEOs of big company. We will take all of your taxes away. All of that stuff he's throwing out there. But when he said for tips, he packaged it as he was talking to a waitress, like he would do that. And got into this deep conversation with an average person, a waitress who's struggling and has to pay tax on her tips. And he just found it was wrong. It was immoral. And it didn't hurt that, the judges and senators and Congress people are getting tips from people like Harlan Crow, big companies, things like that. So if he put on the Trump show type of marketing process that he usually does, and he packages it as this waitress, he's fighting for the blue collar, the 99%, the people who struggle, the waiters, the waitresses that have to do all that hard work. Those are the people that he's fighting for. And Kamala Harris says she's going to not tax tips for service workers, food service workers, hospitality workers, the people whose tips shouldn't be taxed, who historically make less money per hour than the most of us, usually less than minimum wage. So yeah, their tips should not be taxed. But people like Ted Cruz, who's actually running and pushing the no tax on tips bill, is getting hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of tips himself. And that's what the bill is actually all about. So don't let the basic surface sales pitch make you think for 1 second that Donald J. Trump is thinking about anyone but his rich buddies. Because that has nothing to do with the waitress, or waitresses, or waiters. It's nothing to do with them at all. Probably doesn't tip them anyway. Look at the big picture, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the big picture of who's actually working for the regular people, the 99%, and who's actually working for everyone but the 99%. He says it out loud. There is no fake media, fake news. He has said that out loud over and over and over again. You're all really, really rich. Those comments. I'm going to lower all your taxes. I'm going to take away the payroll tax, income tax, which does away with Social Security, Medi-Cal, Medicare, food stamps programs,